Hi, my name is Zachary Angelette, and I just wanted to go over, um, basically string manipulation, specifically for like a CLI command, for later use for generating code. Um, I'll just kind of dive right into it, but just as a little background, I spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out how to manipulate the strings with this, and there was actually a lot I removed that I realized I didn't need. Anyways, so what we have here is, let's say you were going to do a CLI command like this. And why would you do it like this? Let's say you're doing one to generate an API or a struct or whatever it is. I have the name of the field, and then the data type, and then the value. Why have a dot and then a dash? Well, you could do it per space, I guess technically, but for me, I needed a way to remove the value and still keep these sort of together. I suppose you can do it to where you could just trim this off and then just throw it into a slice. But my thing is, I also don't want people to like double space or tab or whatever it is in the terminal. If that even works that way, I'm not sure. But anyways, this is more of a way to make sure they remember exactly how to do the commands. And if they add extra spaces here, I believe it'll still work. So let's say they enter in a whole bunch of struct fields. And I didn't really get too much into the name of the struct or whatever, because that would just be an easy, if I wanted to do it at the beginning or whatever it is I wanted to do. Anyways, this would be how you do the fields, which is probably the hardest and most interesting part to me anyways. So you have the string. It has a bunch of dots, dashes, spaces, and then I guess you could say words in a sense. So how do you separate all this out to make kind of sense, and still do it in a way that you can manipulate it, not just filter. Even though that's kind of all you're really doing is filtering and not really sorting. You're just filtering and turning it from a string to a slice to a string to a slice. Anyways, what I did was, the first thing I thought was, okay, how can I separate the names from the data types? Because eventually with this, I can just slice this off. That's not really a big deal. But how do I start off? How do I get the ball rolling? And really, this whole thing, just as a top-down view, is 3 functions. Trim dash, which is trim the dash. Separate the properties. And then get property data type. I suppose I could have named them a little better. I don't know. But anyways, in this function, it takes in that field string. You just initialize some slices and string variables. You then have to split the string into a slice per space right here. And the reason why I did that was because I need to separate these out as individual commands, so to speak. And so I also needed it per slice so that I could iterate over it, because you can iterate over a string, but it's per byte, and that would get kind of weird. So I just turned it into a slice and separate out each part so that it's a lot easier to kind of deal with. I can break the commands down then to just remove the dot, just add the space or whatever, and just trim the dash, and then just iterate through each one like it's nothing. So that's kind of what I did here. I forarranged over it so that I can kind of break it down even further then. So that, okay, you have each iteratively slice. Here I could probably just, if I debug it, I think it might make a little more sense to you. So we have that string, right? And we have these variables kind of loaded up. And so we're going to split it into a slice. So we split it into a slice, like I said, so that you got each one of these things kind of more easily broken down into a smaller piece, right? So we're going to iterate over those broken down pieces. Because as is, they're just the dot slash, you know, they don't, not slash but dash. So then we turn it back into a slice. And the reason why we do this is so that you can break it down even further and iterate through each part of these. So we go down into words, and you got to remember though, this is in the range loop, so it's going to keep adding it to words as it's iterating through the words. So you kind of have like a double loop going, but you have to do that in order to split things up. And so we run the for loop that then goes through each one of these, and as it goes through each one of these, do a, let me see, it's showing it on here. Yeah, so what this line basically did was remove that dot and trim the dash. So that's knocked off, and then this is a space instead. It's all into one line basically right there. You wouldn't want to do this to the whole thing, because you still have to then print out each one that goes through, and if they fuck it up or whatever, you still need a way to realign what's going on. So if you break these up into their own commands and then iterate through those, it's a little more uniform. And if they do screw it up, it's a lot easier to fix. So we did that. Yeah, there is a space there, only because when I slap it into a string, they need to be separated. I suppose I could have put the space after, it would maybe make more sense. Anyways, so we iterate through that. We have this whole string thing, which is just the name of the property and then the data type with a space in between. And we basically have to split this up. Then I believe it turned into a slice. Yeah. So then it slices everything up. And why is this important? Why would you not just keep it as a double? Because when you want to add the JSON tag, you're going to need a way to, as you print out each field, to make sure the JSON tag has the name value inside the JSON tag. It wouldn't take the data type, right? So it would take the name. So when you reiterate through each one, you don't have to restore another value for the name. It's already separated. And that'll be in the next function to do that. So then now we start the second function in order to do what I just said. Well, it's got to repack everything and re-add it. So it's going to remake the string for each one. And I suppose you can make it so that it adds the JSON before you repack it. Might be a little more efficient. Or the JSON tag, I should say. Alright, well, anyways. I'm gonna make the string. Or, ooh, you know what I bet you I gotta do? Probably at a breakpoint right there. So that when it actually gets to it, it'll stop and let us step through it. So now we go into the second function, and this was a little bit tricky for me because what I kept having was this blank value because of that space. That space is, yeah. Yeah, no, it was right here. It was this guy right here. I could have added it at the end, I suppose, but then I have to deal with that at a different index, and I don't know, I don't want to deal with that. Anyways, so we have now each part of it put into its slice, or index of the slice, and now we need to reformat it to be the first, second index, and, well, skipping the first one. Actually skipping these two indexes because we want to iterate through every second one because we want to add the JSON tag to it. So it wouldn't make any sense to add it right after the first one. We want to add it after the second one. And so that's why we're skipping the first two and then we're starting it. And then we're also adding two, so this only really affects the second one as we reappend and add the JSON tag to it. So we did that, and what do we get? The name of the property, the data type, and then the JSON. This doesn't appear like that in the actual value. I mean, I suppose in a sense it does, but it's meant as a string to separate out things so that when you actually go to print it, these escape characters will print it out like how, just like that /n will do. And so we just iterate through that and we rebuild the slice per line for the name, the data type, and then the JSON tag. Seems all easy now. It wasn't for me to find out. Especially this was, I mean, it makes sense now. And what I screwed up earlier was I did plus, and that screws up your index at a range error thing because you're going, because when you reach the end of the length of S, right? I mean, I suppose you do -1, but then you don't hit the last index. And so if you do -1, you're never getting out of range because you're always taking the one that was prior and then adding it to the one that is per the index. So really what this is this is what's going on is this is the name of the property and this is the data type. I mean, that's really what's going on. And then you have the JSON tag. This, I don't know, I thought this was funny with the backtick and then to get the quote. And then, I think it was later on, yeah, you add the quotes around the backtick. And then over here you use the backtick to add the quote. I don't know. Anyways, and this is where you add the name again for the JSON tag because you're not going to put in the data type there, right? So this is why it needed to be separated out. This is why I didn't want to store the name to its own slice because then you have to reiterate and make things really confusing because this is one line, not terribly hard to understand. And I don't think it'd be that hard to edit either because you can actually go into these indexes and everything and manipulate the string value or the string right then and there inside of here. So it kind of doesn't matter. I suppose you can break it down even further in a sense, and then make that its own function, and then it would be easier to manage. Okay. I mean, I could just do that now and just separate them out, but whatever. So that's basically how you add the JSON tag. And so then it just builds it. And prints it out. And that printout is, the spacing, because of this needs to be all the way back here in order for it to actually be spaced correctly. But you get the idea. And this would obviously have another, value, whatever the struct tag would be in a so to speak. And then this name thing would, probably be maybe the first value of it, so that they can name the struct or whatever. And then you could just iterate through the fields, and it would print out the name of the struct and everything. So that would be sort of how you manipulate the strings for that. Would this be reusable? Yeah, I think so, because if you're attempting to have your own CLI thing that generates code or whatever, you're gonna always need to replace parts of the string, right, or split them up. And this sort of is a good outline for something you may want to use in order to do that. I didn't really go over trim dash, but basically it does exactly what you think it does. It takes this and then returns only whatever was left after that. So if you put this on the other side, it'll be the other side of value. If you put it on this side, it'll trim out this and then whatever's left. Because that was obviously specific. But if you wanted to keep the value for whatever reason, suppose later on, if you're going to save it in a table or something, I suppose you would have to isolate that, but you would just use a trim. You wouldn't need to do all this stuff for it. You would just do the regular old replace, and then it wouldn't matter. But yeah, and I just personally really love how it would go. You can just finagle something right in the middle of it, and you don't necessarily. You could do it right in the middle of the index. You could do it right in the middle of the string. You can add, things that end the line, just all right then there, right inside of an append, or inside of another function, and it's not really a big deal, which is great. It makes the code 10 times more readable. Because otherwise, doing this, doing it in JavaScript I'm sure someone would use some kind of a bunch of index up and index of, and then reduce, and it'd be all these functions that you wouldn't be able to touch or anything, and then you'd probably have to re-index it all anyways again, and that when you do it with JavaScript, that when you re-add the string, it from the array, it re-adds it correctly and everything. This I thought was also really neat. I didn't even look this up. I just was like, how do I add a string together? I wonder if it's like numbers, just plus equals, get a string, plus it toward the value of another string. It works. Now as far as would would this work if they screw with the input? That I didn't test whatsoever. I'm wondering if, let's see what spaces. Now if I start adding random characters, I really wouldn't expect it to work. But we'll see. All these breakpoints. I should have just done go run. Yeah, still works with all the spacing. Because I had to re-split it up, realign it, and everything. But yeah, if I start doing this, things are not going to turn out so well. Because, I mean, I suppose if you did it with the dot and you understood its context with the dot on either side of it, then technically you really could. Anyways, yeah, if you have any questions or anything, please let me know. Yeah, thank you.